Okay, so we're still talking about the 70-degree setup, and the 45 and 60 we set up as peaking cals, but the 70 we set up as a surface distance cal, PPATT, probe positioning arrival time technique. But there is an exception to that rule. If I have an extremely deep ID flaw, then I will do it as a peaking cal. And but I usually work that from my 70-degree PPATT cal, the normal cal I normally have. So I'm going to demo this sizing. I'm going to start by recalling my 70. Okay, 70, open, contents recall. I've recalled my 70. Let's go ahead and just check and see that it's set up as a probe positioning arrival time technique cal. We've got our 1/2-inch thick sidral hole block. I'm going to put the index point right on the notch mark. When I do that, that aims the probe with 70 degrees right at the side drill hole. And that should be very close to, do I have my cable on all the way? It should be very close to 100 deep. Put the index point on the notch mark for the 200. That should be very close to 200 in the depth box. Put it on the notch mark for the 300 hole. And it's close to 300. Put the index point, I'm not peeking up now, I'm just putting it on the notch mark that aims 70 degrees directly towards the 400 deep hole. Let's add a little gain to put it up in there. Pretty close to 400 deep. So that's a normal cal for me, my probe positioning arrival time technique with the 70. And but in cases where I have an extremely deep ID connected flaw or maybe a narrow D flaw, then I will use a peaking cal. And the way I go about setting that up is something like this. Here's our 300 thick notch block. Here's our 210 deep notch. That would, that's simulating an extremely deep ID flaw. The depth to that tip is 90 thousandths. And so I'm gonna walk up on that. I'm going to start from way back here and walk up on that to where I walk over the top of this notch. And there's, as I repeatedly do this, you'll notice that back here it's extremely loud and it's mostly coming out of the corner. But I do start walking up the face of the flaw, and this probe has enough resolution so that I also see a separate tip signal that kind of takes over right at the top. So that tip is the top of the notch, and where I go over the top of that notch is going to be right about there, right about 105. So I can see the exact top of that. I'm going to momentarily take 6 dB out and see where I walk over the top, right about there, 103, 104. So I'm going to adjust the 0 to make that read 90. And it's going to become sort of like an AATT, absolute arrival time technique, where we're just peaking up on that tip signal. So I'm changing the cal now to a peaking cal. And let's go, if I go into 0 and adjust that to make it read 90 in the depth box. Oops, wrong way. There. All right, now let's see how this works. I'm going to go ahead and start recording some things here on our 90 deep tip. We actually got 90. Come on. Okay, the next one is this 180 deep notch. The depth to that tip is 120. Let's see where that peaks up. Here's our corner. We're walking up to where we walk over the tap. I think I had taken 6 dB out of that. I'm going to put it back in. And let's see where we walk over the top of that. And that's reading, I'm going to write down 124. It is 120, and I'm reading it as 124, pretty close. 124. Okay, the next one that I'm going to treat as an extremely deep ID connected flaw, it's the 150 notch. This is my favorite because the depth to the tip is also 150. So I'm going to start from way back here. The corner is near 300 deep. Now I'm walking up. Here comes the tip signal. And this is where I go over the top. Peeking up on that. I'm also doing a little bit of skewing. I don't always say that, but when I go back and forth, I usually am doing a little bit of skewing, oscillating too. And I'm going to say I'm doing it right there. I can see on the screen by my major divisions and minor divisions, it's right at 150. Digitally, it reads it as 154. I'm going to write down 154. So the 150 I'm reading as 154. And let's see, the last one I'll usually do as an extremely deep ID connected flaw. That would be, here's the 120 notch. The depth to that tip is 180. So let's walk over the top of that. From 300 deep, now I'm walking over the top of it. And right now my attention is not focused on this back part of the signal. That's walking up from the corner. But if I can see a separate tip here, I'm going to focus my attention on where this separate tip signal peaks up. And where I'm seeing it peak up, don't forget to oscillate, is right about there. Freeze that momentarily. 192. So it is 180 and I'm getting 192. So I'd be pretty happy with that. With all of those for sizing, they're all within just a few thousandths of the actual depths. And so this is a peaking type cal with the 70. And this is how I would do sizing for an extremely deep ID connected flaw, or maybe the top of a near OD flaw. And I usually don't save this as a separate cal. If I need it, I just go ahead and set it up quickly by walking over the top of that 90 deep tip and adjusting the 0 to bring it in, and then I do my sizing from there. All right, so thanks a lot.